Welcome to the Social Priority Podcast. I'm Star Panda, and today we talk about the state of political satire. But first, I'd like to introduce a great satirist himself, Justin T. Brown. How are you doing,
Hey,
Mr.
everybody.
T?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. So how did you get started editing political satire and the like?
Well, I've been an editor for probably like 6, 7 years in LA. And during COVID, there was kind of a pause on most work, and my work kind of like dried up quite a bit. So I had a lot of free time on my hands, and so I just started messing around. I had a political voice, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. And then I saw this terrible interview with Trump and Jason, what is his name? Swan? What's the guy's name? Anyway, Trump did this terrible interview where he just like botched every part of the interview, and it was a hilarious meme in and of itself. So I just thought I would just play around and see what I could do with that, and I thought maybe I'd make something to impress my friends. And I made a video of Trump interviewing himself and kind of fighting with himself, battling with himself. And I put it on my YouTube channel that had like, I don't know, 7 subscribers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up the next morning and somebody had found it somehow, put it on Reddit, and it just exploded. Like, it was huge. Took the internet by storm, broke the internet for like, a day.
Wow.
Went viral on Twitter, went viral Facebook. It was even viral internationally. My wife, she's an immigrant, and she was telling me in her country that like it was viral there as well.
Wow. That's pretty great.
Yeah, it was wild. It's weird to wake up to that. It's weird to wake up to like a million texts and messages and phone calls.
Were you always interested in politics?
Yeah. So, prior to that, like, just been politically active. I got more active starting around like the No Dapple movement, around Bernie in 2016, and kind of followed politics throughout that. More a poster than anything. Go to a few rallies, raise a little bit of money for different causes or donate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just during COVID, I think like a lot of us just got radicalized by the circumstances that we were living in.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of like pushed into action a little more. So getting a little more heavy into like the BLM movement at the time, a lot of protesting, money raising, donating, things like that. And then just the video editing started as well.
Yeah. I pretty much got radicalized around the same time. My first vote was for Obama, and then I was kind of politically like just dead in the water because I wasn't paying attention. And then
same happened to me.
Yeah. Then like right around Bernie, I think that's around when a lot of people started getting really into politics, and like because like it seemed like a really important movement at that time.
I totally agree. It's like, I was the classic like vote for Obama. Okay, things are cool, and just like go to sleep and just work.
Yeah.
Go to sleep politically and just like, hey, we're in good hands. It's all chill. At least the other guys aren't in here. Because I was in high school when like the Iraq War was popping off,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember like recruiters coming to my school and stuff like that. And then like you're hearing about like classmates passing away during the war and things like that. And I had some friends that went there and came back, and they were pretty fucked up. Sorry if I can't swear on this podcast.
No, you can.
Yeah, good. You're gonna get a few out of me then. But yeah, so that was like my first experience of politics is around that time. So I'm like, oh my God, these Republicans are just as worse as you can get. Not understanding the extent of like how much of that is bipartisan, but also, once we got Obama in, then I was just like, okay, cool, we're in good hands. I'm just gonna just do my thing for as long as it takes. And then as like, things just started, like my life wasn't quite turning out the way I had hoped. I didn't have the kind of trajectory that I was kind of expected, that I was promised, like, going to college and everything, kind of expectations that like you're going to be on top of the world when you get out. And it wasn't like that. It was a lot harder. So by the time Bernie came around, I had enough experience with like the false promise of what America said it was and what opportunities were available to me. And so by that time I was like ready to hear what Bernie was preaching. Right. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I think he did a great service to a lot of like the American left by just first waking a lot of us up, shaking us awake, reminding us that like it's okay to hope for a better future and try for it. And just also showing us that there's uh, alternate paths besides just relying on the Democrats to take care of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel exactly the same way because like I feel like a lot of us were very stagnant before Bernie,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he finally like told us, "Hey, you should want better for yourself," like I think everyone was just like, "Yeah, maybe we should."
Yeah,
So yeah,
totally. He'll always have like that guy. Like to me, like I try to think of people in terms of like net positive or net negative. Like, okay, if you're above 50%, I consider you a net positive person. If you're below 50%, you're a net negative person. You probably don't need to be in my life, right? Birdie, like some people give him flack, some people, attack him to this day. He doesn't do everything that I agree with to this day. Probably a little further on the left spectrum than he is, or he can be within Washington. But he'll always be net positive to me. He'll always be Uncle Bernie just because of the gift he gave to all of us by grabbing us by the shirt and just shaking us awake and somewhat unifying us for just like fleeting moments
hmm
in a culture like the leftist culture in America, leftist culture in general. There's always a lot of infighting, but Bernie was able to like harness most of us enough to almost win a presidency. All right, listen, Bernie, you're on the good side forever for me.
do you hope he runs in 2024?
I don't know. I just don't know. I don't. I'm kind of. I hope somebody with his politics runs and wins in 2024. I don't know if it's
Hmm
specifically Bernie. Maybe it is. I mean, we're America. We like trilogies. Maybe the third one will work.
Yeah.
um, but you know, at this point, I think that a lot of my faith in change comes from outside of Washington. So I'm looking around at like the union movement popping off right now. Starbucks, Home Depot, like all these different companies, all their workers are being like, "Yeah, we've had enough of this shit. We're going to unionize. And we're going to start throwing our weight around and just creating our own creating better conditions for ourselves."
hmm
And so I have a lot of faith in that right now. I don't have as much faith in Washington. I have faith in us. So my where I'm kind of at now is I'm just hoping that uh, there are enough people in Washington to like get in the way of like the creeping fascism that is the Republican Party. So I'm a little bit back on the side of like Democrats are better than Republicans. At least we have Democrats in, just because while they're not perfect, they are at least like putting up a brick wall, even if
Yeah.
it's a very porous one at times.
hmm
Like a Washington full of John Fettermans and AOCs is a much better situation than a Washington full of Marjorie Taylor Greens, right? Like, there's no
Yeah.
hope for us then. Like, at least, at least with more Democrats and more progressive Democrats in place, um, there's a there's a chance for something like the union movement to become a lot bigger than it is and really start pushing its weight around, and be kind of like an unofficial third party,
hmm
if given more time and more space to do so. But Republicans are like, I don't know, they're like dragons in Game of Thrones. Like they just halt all progress. So like getting Republicans out is like kind of my primary concern at this moment.
Yeah.
But not because I love Democrats by any stretch. There are some within there that I think are cool. Um, but it's more so to just like allow the left to actually flourish in America. Like I don't think it's really a coincidence that we had, even though a lot of us were asleep during Obama. I think it's not a coincidence that we had like 8 years of Democrats and Obama, especially as a central figure. And we kind of almost wrote that into a Bernie presidency.
hmm
Whereas if we have like 8 years of Republicans, we're it's kind of like the Trump versus Biden uh, race. It was like, let's just get Biden, please. We'll take any bullshit. Just get Trump out of here. We'll take your worst guy. And with Republicans in place, we'll always be like that. So I think, at least having more Democratic power in Washington, it kind of emboldens the left and kind of frees up the left to like worry less about, and like not just the left, but also like marginalized communities. Like you can worry if you're worrying a little bit less about being hunted for sport by the Republicans, then you can spend more time organizing and building a better future.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I completely agree with that.
so
Um,
long way to say, I don't know. I don't know if I want Bernie to run or not. Yes, it'd be cool. I love him. He's the only person I've ever seen in this country that can unify a big enough segment of the left to actually do anything politically.
mhm.
So I mean, it's like he's on the American political left, which is like fairly at the current moment not as powerful as it could be. Um, uh, but having a central figure like that, it makes us powerful. And I don't want to do like great man worship or anything like that, but he's the guy that's done it, and he usually surrounds himself with the people that know how to do it as well. And he's the kind of guy that learns lessons. So I don't know. Yes and no. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
If it happens, I'll be happy. If it doesn't happen, I get it.
yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, I don't think there's another person on the left who actually
Mhm.
embodies that what Bernie does.
Yeah,
I think eventually John Fetterman might, but
maybe. Yeah.
um, like I think before him, probably AOC. But I think she's like more interested in representing her district. But we'll
Mhm.
have to see what happens. So
Yeah, it's cool to think about these people in a few years, right? Like I
yeah.
think AOC gets a lot of heat, like like in the very on like my space is the online left. Um, it just that's because I make this kind of content that's where I primarily live in that world, and all you see, but you see a ton of people talking shit on AOC, and while like I could have criticisms of her as well, I think I wish more of us could think in terms of like years instead of moments. Um, if you can imagine, like project AOC a few years down the line, what kind of power she can amass, what kind of
Mhm.
power she already has, and not just her, obviously. It's the entire, the growing squad and like the people behind these movements and their entire people who they surround themselves with. There are oftentimes radical people as well. Um, like I think one of her, the people that made her first famous campaign video that went super viral, they went off and started Means TV after that.
Mhm.
Like that's sick. That's so sick. Like obviously she surrounds herself with some radical people. But it would be good to imagine some of these people down the road, and not be so short sighted as to like this moment or that moment. And different people have different like projections of what that looks like. But for me, I'm like, okay, that's the best we got. If we're gonna have a Washington that's dictating power, let's fill it with AOCs. That way, we're at least have some freedom on the outside to build something that can rival the Democrats eventually.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I read your article about
Mm.
getting gender affirming care as a cis boy. Um,
Hmm.
and it was really interesting, a really interesting perspective that I honestly
Cool.
hadn't thought about. Why don't you explain your experience with that?
Sure. So just kind of to recap the story a bit, when I was, I think like 14 or 15, I started like going through puberty. Hormones are kind of weird. Like nature isn't quote unquote perfect. It's, everything's a spectrum. Nature just does what it's got to do. And I started kind of budding breasts, like almost like a pubescent girl would, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and it sucked. Like that's not what I had envisioned for myself. And I was really embarrassed by it. And I was like, this isn't the standard of like masculinity that was like that I aspired to be or that was appreciated in the culture. Like guys with boobs wasn't like a big sexy thing in 2002. So it was not something I had aspired for, and it just made me feel like it wasn't the person that I felt I was, and it wasn't the person that I wanted to be. And that kind of like made me kind of really reserved and kind of quiet. And just not living the full extent like a teenager should, not living a teenage life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I kind of explained it to my dad and my mom. My dad was the one I was a little more nervous about because he's a bit more conservative. Um, but I just told them how I was feeling, and like they'd kind of known something was up because I was like in never taking my shirt off in the pool mode, never taking my shirt off on a hot day like all the other
Yeah.
boys. They knew something was up, and I was feeling kind of weird about myself, and I think they had assumed that I would just like grow out of it or whatever, or just a phase. But when I really explained to them like how much my life was affected by it, and how like I felt like I wanted to take off my shirt, or I felt like I wanted to like jump in the pool and not have to worry about it, or just not feel embarrassed around other kids. I mean, teen boys are weird too. Like, yeah, everyone's grabbing each other's nipples in school and shit. That's what shit would terrify me. I didn't want to get on the bus in the morning thinking about that might happen. Um, so when I explained all this to my parents, they were like pretty understanding about it. And then we went to like a local surgeon and explained to the surgeon, and he was like, "Yeah, that's this. Here's what it's called. It's called gynomastia or gynomastica. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But
Gynecomastia.
yeah, it's been 20 years, so forgive
Mm,
me.
that's fine.
Yeah, I needed the editor to spell check me too in the article. Um, but yeah, explain the situation to them. I said there's a procedure for it. It's like an in and out thing. You'll just you'll be in here for a couple hours and you'll get out with an ace bandage, and you'll wear that for a few weeks just to keep down the drainage. But then you'll be chill after that.
Nice.
And so yeah, that happened to me. And like the next year, I was like the teen I wanted to be. Like I went from like the kid that like was pretty quiet in school and like didn't want to hang out too much, a very less seen kid, to like the most seen kid in school. I was suddenly quote unquote popular, made a ton of new friends, started dating, played a sport, did all the things I was like supposed to do. So like my senior year of high school rocked. I felt like I peaked in my senior year because of that. Like it just is I felt like such freedom to be who I wanted to be and who I felt like I was. I dressed differently. My attitude was different. I got like in the high school yearbook, I have superlatives like class clown, best dressed, all these things that I never was prior to that. So
Wow.
I felt like I became myself finally. And after that, I didn't really think about it that much. Like, okay, new me. Okay, off to college. Okay, here's my new life. But I didn't think about that surgery very much until the last few years, really. Um, because like as trans identity and trans vocabulary really started like taking its way into the mainstream more and more, it got me thinking more and more about this kind of thing. And as a lot of us cis people have been going through, there's like a lot of like trying to figure things out and trying to do a little self exploration as well. And I started thinking about like, like, a lot of the surgeries and a lot of the treatments uh, that people in the trans community seek out are some of the same shit that we get all the time. And that's not a
Mm-hmm.
big deal. And why is that? What's different about it? And so just thinking about that kind of stuff and thinking about my own surgery, I just decided to make a tweet thread about that and just kind of sharing my story. And to my surprise, it went super viral, like mega viral.
Mm-hmm.
And a ton of people were sharing it and talking about it. And a lot of other people started sharing their stories, kind of saying similar things, like I'd never thought of it this way. And then NBC reached out to me and said, you should write an article about this. And that's how that came to be.
Oh, so they reached out to you to write the article.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad your experience could be heard by so many people. I think it is a really important experience because, like you said, people don't really think of it that way very often. Um,
Mm,
and it really helps with like understanding what trans people do go through, even from a cis perspective. So, yeah,
yeah.
that's great. So,
I mean, I assume it's not like, I assume my perspective is like, I don't understand everything per se about like what I don't claim to understand what trans people go through. Like that's like I can't even begin to approach that, but I do and I understand like who I am and why I did what I did. And if it's that simple for people that identify as trans, like that, if it's that simple and easy for me, I think that people who are trans should, at the very least, receive the same consideration. Because if you're not receiving the same consideration, then it is just bigotry. That's it. That's at the end of the day. That's all it is. So
Yeah, I think personally, I don't think trans people really need other people to completely understand. Just like
mm-hmm.
for people to I guess to put themselves in those shoes. Like I guess look at experiences like yours to understand what is going on in the world and what might be happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
uh with trans people being excluded from these processes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a great opportunity that you had to share your experience, and I think it's really important, you know? Cuz like it's basically like a one-to-one uh comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Um So, but like, did you immediately draw that comparison when you started hearing about trans related care and stuff like that?
Not immediately. Like it didn't even. I forget I even got it. It's been so long.
Hmm.
Like the only time I even like until recently, obviously, the only time that I really even thought about it is that I was like, looking at myself in the mirror after a shower or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I still have those little scars. Um, but it really doesn't even enter my mind anymore because I was like freed from it. Like they let the bird out of the cage when I was like 16, 15, 16.
Hmm.
So I never looked back. But as like the conversation started, becoming more and more in the mainstream, it was like, oh, I wonder if there's any correlation there. And then I started like asking some people who are trans in my life, does this make sense? I did like an anonymous post on a trans Reddit just to say like, hey, here's this situation. What do you make of this? And got a bunch of feedback in there as well. And so it was kind of a process thinking about it because I don't think my brain was ready to think about it that way either.
Hmm.
It just like because like the door was open a crack for me, and I had some time to explore it that I came to that conclusion. But it probably took like I don't know a couple of years to reach that conclusion.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Um, yeah, if people want to know more, I will have a link in the description so you can read the article and everything. So, but yeah, I really appreciate that experience.
Thank you.
So let's go on to the main topic today. So basically, political satire is dead. True or false?
I think it's false. I think it's false. I think mainstream political satire is dead. I think some of the funniest people in the world are, and it's usually this is usually like a pejorative, but it's online leftists.
Hmm.
They're really, really funny, and they're doing really satirical, funny stuff a lot. So, like the funniest people that I can think of right now are like the current moment are the people that are satirizing Elon Musk on Twitter and satirizing these companies like Chiquita. Like that someone made a fake Chiquita banana account and it was saying something about how they hadn't overthrown a or haven't couped a government in like X many years. I don't know. It's
Since the
such a beautiful moment right
1950s,
now.
yeah, I remember that tweet.
Yes,
That was hilarious.
I've been on my ass dying laughing at this. Like satire is not that. Satire is alive and well. It's just not. It's just not in the mainstream. Like
Hmm.
you couldn't get me to crack a smile at SNL right now. You couldn't do
Yeah,
it. Even when they had like, um, uh, what's his face, the producer that shot his employee. Jesus Christ,
what?
Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin.
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean That's how I frame that issue. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, even if it was an accident, it's negligence. But anyway, as a producer,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, yeah, SNL, like even when they were doing Trump like every day, it was never funny because they can never really tackle systemic issues. Like the point of being like the court jester is to like subversively poke at real stuff that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why like there's no funny Joe Biden impressions anywhere in the mainstream. Like even they even brought in the master Jim Carrey to try a Joe Biden impression, and nobody liked it. No, even the master couldn't do it in that setting. Um, so like, and often it's because they just can't, like I said, they just can't touch on real systemic issues. They can only make fun of like, oh, Joe Biden wears sunglasses. Isn't that funny? Or Trump, he purses his lips when he talks and he has orange skin. Isn't that funny? And they're not unable to find ways that really resonate with real people beyond the superficial.
I think
I think it's because they can't.
I think part of the problem is the shows like SNL are a little bit lost in liberalism. Like
Yeah.
that establishment type of like liberal mindset where you can't harm the status quo and
Mm-hmm.
basically just um
Yeah.
well,
What are you going to do? Hit Trump on student loan debt?
yeah,
You got to hit Trump on endless wars.
yeah, like we have all these issues with our society, but like the centrists in government don't want to fix that, and
Mm,
people on SNL don't seem to want to hurt the status quo in that.
yep.
And in that way, like I guess in my eyes, satire is dead in that way. But like you
Mhm.
said, most of the satire is on out I guess out of the mainstream, I should say. Um
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. Yeah, I think yeah, just Twitter right now is a great example. Everything on Twitter right now is a great example.
Everything on Twitter now is a fire.
Yes. We live in the satire now. It's all around us. I feel like my video content uh now that Twitter is just like full of like even more unreality. I feel like my satirical video content is just reality on Twitter now. Nothing feels real. Nothing makes sense. Everything is opposite day.
I also think that like there's a problem with uh satire too many times becoming real. And
Yeah.
then like
How to keep up with it.
The Onion is a perfect example because they keep writing like amazing satire, and now like 10 years later, articles from the past are coming true, which is
Oh yeah,
ridiculous and
yeah,
really
they're
sad
writing
and
predictions.
scary. Yeah, it's interesting why that's happening. Um,
I think the angle that I'm trying to take with a lot of the satire that I do, and not just me too. I don't want to just overcredit myself, but like there's always a network of people that help me out in these things. Whether it's some close friends from school who always give me feedback. I have a new editing partner named Chris Lee. Shout out to my editing partner Chris Lee, the master. Um, I have a network of people on Twitter that often give me feedback, and the YouTube comment section is always full of help. Always full either giving me like critical feedback that I apply to the next video, or just like, I don't make much money from this or any money usually. Um, but they're keeping me afloat by just like saying how much they appreciate it. So all that stuff is all in the cycle, right?
mm,
But anyway, the approach I try to take is, since our world, like you kind of identified, like the Onion is doing satire, but it's really just predictions.
yeah,
Our world kind of is the satire. Like the richest guy in the world is already the dumbest man on the earth. It's Elon Musk. He's a fool. He's so stupid, and like everybody can see it now, except for the sycophantic fan base. Um,
it's like we're
but
watching a Simpsons episode.
exactly, it's like we're already there. So my like it's all falling apart. We're just like we're the dog in the house drinking coffee, and the house is on fire. We are. That's us. Everything is fine. um, so my approach to satire in that environment is to be like, okay, maybe we should just maybe it'll be funny if I just make the world a little better and make bad guys less bad. Like the most recent video we put out was Ben Shapiro endorsing John Fetterman for Senate against Dr. Oz.
Yeah, that was a great video.
Thank you, thank you. I have to think that we contributed to the win in a very small way. But if anybody asks, I take full credit. um, but like in that scenario, like all I'm doing is making a good guy less bad, or a bad guy less bad, or into even a good guy or an ally. Like I put out another Ben Shapiro video called "Ben Shapiro Defends Trans Existence," where he, as accurately as I could make him, describes and defends trans existence,
Mhm.
and from like an ally, like a cis ally perspective. So like, in a world where I can't necessarily make good traditional satire because we already live in the satire. I'm just trying to like undo it and make the world slightly better.
I
And that ends
feel
up being funny because things are so bad.
I feel like your videos are like a peek into like an alternate reality, like what could have been.
The
And
multiverse.
yeah, basically. Oh my god, that's what we've come to now. Uh,
Yeah,
just dreaming
we're hoping.
dreaming of a
Yeah,
better society in editing. Um,
just waiting for the portal to open so we can jump through it.
yeah. Um, so what do you think about I guess the right satire? Like personally I think it feels like I guess more like dog whistles at this point, you know?
Yeah, it's just like how many keywords can you just cram into a 1 minute video or whatever, or a tweet. It's just listing off things that you don't like, and like if they satirize liberals who they accuse of being communists for some weird reason, they'll just like give them every stereotype imaginable, give them blue hair.
Yeah.
They'll like, oh, I identify as like a dump truck or whatever. They'll say all the stupid stuff that just riles the fan base up, but they're not doing anything. It's boring shit. It's not even funny. Like I love making fun of liberals. They suck at it. I wish they
Hmm.
were better. They'd probably be doing better, like culturally, if they could even muster up one smile. But all their shit, just like it's just it's hateful and just listing off things they don't like. It's lazy, and I think
Yeah.
people can smell that.
Yeah, like I think it's called Babylon Bee. Like they
Hmm.
do or they try to do political satire and it just doesn't work. Like
Yeah,
th- I don't know how to explain it. Like they're just bad at it.
yeah, and yeah, I think if I were to analyze it, uh, I don't know. It's kind of because they're doing a similar thing that the liberal establishment satire like SNL is doing. You're just
Yeah.
doing superficial stuff that no one cares about. Even the fan base, you might get a little chuckle or a hell yeah out of it because you listed off a thing that they like or dislike.
Yeah.
But you're not like you're not being subversive in any meaningful way. You know, uh, yeah, they just don't have the stones for it. Like they're just not there. They can't do it because that would mean they'd have to like step outside of the orthodoxy. When you're on the right or the far right, there's like, I mean, that's part of our current mainstream. There's nowhere else for them to go except like full fascist, like open fascist, but nobody thinks that is funny. There's nobody laughing at that. Whereas like people that are like on the left, like we're inherently outside of the mainstream. Like we live in a capitalist country, and people on the left want to completely dismantle that. So there is no mainstream for us. We have to build a mainstream for us.
Hmm.
Um, so the only way to be subversive, I think, in this country, in a way that's genuinely gut busting funny, is to be leftist and to be anti-capitalist, because that's the only way you can deconstruct the society that we live in.
Yeah, I
You
think
have
that
to have that
goes
perspective.
it goes right down to like punching up instead of punching down. Like
Simplest form. Yep, that's it.
yeah, basically like punching up in the leftist way is basically like just taking down the establishment and like critiquing the government in that way. Like um I feel like a lot of uh I guess comedy, sort of like Bo Burnham. He does a
Hmm.
great job deconstructing all these things. Like his latest
Yes.
special, Inside, was
Mhm.
great, and like a lot of leftist people really resonated with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if right wing people also resonated with it because it was honest and true. You know?
Yeah, I think those perspectives are attractive to all people because I think everybody kind of wants to be counterculture in some way. It's just too cool. And America has like all the coolest moments in American history are counterculture moments.
Mhm.
So everybody like intrinsically wants to be a part of that. Some people try to find that on the right. Like right now, it's like people consider like because I don't know, they think that like trans people took over the United States somehow or something. So like Matt Walsh comes off as like counterculture in some weird way, or Ben Shapiro does. But like at the end of the day, uh, like Republican media versus liberal media, it's like it's just my side of the establishment is cooler than your side of the establishment. And so like, my group of rich guys is cooler than your group of rich guys. And so like I don't know, it's just not funny.
Yeah.
It's just not funny because it's not doing anything subversive. The only position you can take in society like that is like, hey, listen, both of your rich guys, they really suck. They really suck, and here's how we're gonna make fun of them. We're gonna punch up at them. Punching down, I don't know. It's boring. Two, it's easy. And it's just bullying. If you're punching down, you're just bullying. So like, I'm not totally against bullying though. I'd rather bully up. So like that's why a lot of my videos target people like Elon Musk, target Ben Shapiro, target Donald Trump, at times target Joe Biden even. You have to punch up. I think that's just like a fundamental rule, unless you're a prick. if you get
Yeah.
if you get if you get a lot of joy out of like seeing people punch down to people that are like in a much tougher place in society, than like you're just laughing at bullying in like the most traditional sense. But it's actually subversive to laugh at people in power and people in real power.
Um.
So
To I guess another thing about that. Um. There is something the right recently has been making fun of, which was the situation with Nancy Pelosi, where her
oh
husband
Jesus.
was basically beaten. And they just made a ton of jokes about it, uh, like he didn't just almost die, you know, like
It's yeah, and they tried, and the jokes they made were like, again, they were just trying to like fall back on like or like conservative fundamentals. Like what's the big thing? Oh, he was a gay prostitute. Okay.
yeah,
It's
like
like,
this is from the '60s.
yeah, the best you can come up with is just yelling "gay" at him. Like that's the depth of analysis in that situation, and that's where the comedy comes from. It's like, there's, I mean, I'm not going to attempt it right now, but there's there's definitely ways to think about that situation and satirize and make comedy of that situation. But you can't do it from that perspective, because it's like, again, you're just finding a way to punch down. And again, it's boring. That's why this stuff, like their jokes and stuff, are like produce. They don't last very long. Like
Yeah,
the videos that I put out, I don't want to like position myself as like the fucking greatest satirist or whatever in history. It's just like, but there's some proof, and then like the videos that I put out like 2 years ago, they still like periodically go viral.
hmm
And it's because I'm intentionally trying to tap into something real and like something that's actually subversive. Whereas like, the jokes about Nancy Pelosi's husband getting beat by a gay prostitute don't last very long, because it's just like, oh, you're talking about gay stuff again. Oh, the gay people are bad again. Oh my God, it's been 50, 60, 70 years of this. no, everyone's bored of it, even people on the right. So
Yeah, exactly. Like it just seems like the right with their comedy just keeps trying to fit in a way to punch down on either gay people, black people, or like any minority out there. And like
mhm,
there's I love dark jokes and
mhm,
there could have been potential for a joke about that situation, but
mhm.
the way they went about it was just cruel, you know?
Yeah.
Um like I probably not right away. You wouldn't want to make a joke about it, but um like
You
oh
have to be very talented and very skilled, and like a surgeon,
yeah,
to be able to
yeah.
pull that off.
There's very few people who know how to do that, and
Yeah.
I can't think of any names right now. So
The only the only the only the only person that I saw make not make light of the situation, but be very funny around the situation. And I had to watch this video like 3 or 4 times. It was just I was just dying laughing. It was actually Hassan Piker.
really,
I don't watch a lot of his content, but this one just came across my feed and I gave it a click because I'm trying to find out more information about the situation. And he spent a good like 15 or 20 minutes just bullying, brutally bullying the guy that did the attack, like looking up all of his looking up his internet history and just like reading about his history. And he was just making fun of him for like a good 15 or 20 minutes. And I mean, if you're gonna make fun of anybody in the situation, it's the guy that fucking attacked that person, right?
yeah.
In that situation, I don't know if I consider that punching down in that particular situation, um, because of, I don't know, Hassan Piper's position in like our culture right now is pretty high, but like this guy is also like a killer or attempted murderer. Um, but that I thought that was just hilarious, and in that situation, that's really the only person you can take a swing at,
Hmm.
and he did it in a way that was just like effective. And like I said, I'm not like anti-bullying in some ways. That sounds weird to say, but like I consider probably all of my videos bullying to some extent.
Yeah.
Like even though it's just like even though just like turning Ben Shapiro into a decent person would be bullying to him. So I just try to figure out a more creative way to do it. Um, but yeah, I think in that particular situation, that's one of the very few approaches you can take. And uh, in that kind of session, he's also like I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it likely is because he's been doing this for a long time. But he's also like discouraging his viewers away from going down that same pipeline that attempted murderer did.
Hmm.
You know, stay away from these alt right pipelines because guess what? If you do some stupid shit like this, we're gonna look at your internet history as well, and we're just gonna roast you. And I think that's pretty effective for people that live most of their life online.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I just want to touch on one more thing. Like,
Sure.
uh, I feel like there's a lot of people on the right who say that like these minorities can't take a joke, but like we joke about ourselves all the time. Like trans people, we have an entire subreddit about making fun of ourselves, and like it's ridiculous that people don't think we can take a joke because we can. It's just
Obviously.
like with Dave Chappelle, if you're telling the same joke that we've heard like for the past 20 years, it's not going to go well, you know? Like
Hmm.
we can laugh at ourselves, but like the joke's not funny if we've heard it before, you know? So,
Sure.
especially if it's from people who basically like talk down to us all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
And
that's
claim to be team turf, like proud to be team turf. You don't have to say that
yeah.
shit, man. Like what are you
Yeah.
doing?
That's
You don't have to do
being
that. Like he's such a like not to like totally steal your point right now, but just like thinking about Dave Chappelle, like that guy was an icon. Like I grew up on Dave Chappelle. Like
mhm.
I'm a white guy too. I grew up in Maine, one of the whitest states in the whole country. So like, and Chappelle's show was like some of my first exposure to like how real racism is in people's everyday lives. Like
Mhm.
where I grew up, it's like 99.9999% white, and like I don't have a lot of exposure to other cultures. So like, and just having access to Chappelle's show was like a miniature education for me. And so like, to see him go from like one of the greatest satirists, at least in my lifetime, to go, and he still has some good stuff now. I don't watch his specials because I can't stomach the bad parts. Before I understand, I've seen clips, and he has still makes straight points about race, and like how it's still pervasive in our culture. But he keeps trying to tiptoe into that shit that's like so boring that just derails everything. So it's like not even, I don't know. I don't even know what it does for him. It must be some personal thing that he's dealing with. Obviously it's not helping him. I don't know. It's something I think about.
Yeah,
Sad to see.
there are certain things he does say that could be considered fair criticism. Like, I do remember from his recent, not recent, but like one of his last specials that he was talking about a white gay guy who called the cops on him. Like, that is a problem in the LGBT community. We do have racism, and I try to get on that and tell people not to be racist, as much as that might or might not help. But like he has like the bones for a good joke there, but the way he goes about it is just it's not funny. And I feel like if he applies what he learned from doing racialized comedy, like what he learned when he had to end the Chappelle show because like he found out that right wingers were like taking it literally, he and applied it to like LGBTQ jokes. Like those could be just as funny as the race jokes, you know?
Sure. I think in order to do comedy like that, though, you have to have like you have to kind of immerse yourself, at least trying to understand to the best of your ability the culture that you're talking about, or the society you're talking about, the people that you're talking about. Because if you don't know them, you can't make fun of them, or make fun around them, or gently tease, in a way that feels, one, authentic, and two, like you're not just being a dick.
Yeah.
So and it's very clear from his comedy around people in the community that he's not even trying to understand. He's not getting in there like he needs to if he's going to be a good satirist for that. Like again, not just because it's in my mind. It's not comparing myself to Dave Chappelle. Anyway, he's kind of a master in his own right, and whatever. But the stuff that I make, it's like, you know how many hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours I have to watch of Ben Shapiro and have to have that voice rattling around in my mind for like weeks on end, just to be able to pull something that feels real. It feels, satirizing him in a meaningful way.
I don't really even want to think about how much I would have to watch that.
It's painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
That voice cuts your mind like a knife. But you have to understand people in order to like to make fun of them effectively. And I don't think he's doing that. I think he's just taking the lazy way. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I guess it just kind of goes to show that like, so every person is like net positive or net negative, right? It's kind of like my overall like life philosophy, right? Like if you're over 50%, you're cool. If you're under 50%, you're not. And there's nobody that's like 100% anything, right? Like Dave Chappelle will always be a legend for some of what he does and has done. Like no one could take that from him. And on this other topic or these topics, he sucks. And that's just how it is. And I think, I don't know, I think people got to learn. I don't want to put this burden on people who are affected negatively by him, but like I think just people in general have to learn how to deal with each other on those terms. Like I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to say some weird stuff. I probably have in this podcast. But I hope that we can all just kind of take each other, at a percentage, instead of like this person said one thing and now they're going to be cast out of society, or this person didn't frame this the right way, and so this is awful. So they're awful, gonna cancel. I'm not like, I don't really think cancel culture exists, but I think a lot of people waste too much time either attacking each other for things that only knock them down a few percentage points, or they spend too much time worrying about cancel culture as if it's real. But I think that we just got to kind of accept that we're all kind of weird, and we're all kind of like not perfect.
Yeah.
That's my little manifesto.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I completely agree with you. Yeah,
But we're all trying. We're all trying to some extent. A lot of us are not trying hard enough or failing, but I think a lot of us are trying.
yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. It was a
Oh, it
great
was fun.
conversation.
Thank you for holding my hand through this. I feel a lot more confident for the next one.
Why don't you plug your everything?
Yeah. Cool. Well, you can find me on YouTube. Just search my name, Justin T. Brown. I think I might be finally the #1 Justin T. Brown on Google. That's been a goal of mine for a while. Next up is Justin Brown. That one's going to be harder. And then the final phase is if I can be the #1 Justin on Google, I will have conquered the world.
That's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, I have to beat out Justin Bieber. But anyway, yeah, search for Justin T. Brown on YouTube, Justin T. Brown on Twitter, Justin T. Brown on Patreon. Hi, my lovely patrons. Yeah, Instagram, same. And what else? TikTok. I'm also on TikTok. I convert all the videos to TikTok as well. So
Awesome.
If you search me, you'll find me.
Yeah, great. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.